If there is one thing that is clear in the uncertainty of business, and therefore the uncertainty for leaders in 2026, it is that clarity is critical and too often lacking. Creating clarity, specifically in expectations in every direction, is our focus today. As important as this is, setting clear expectation, explicit expectations, seems to be a skill that many leaders need to polish. And if that's you, you're in exactly the right place. That's what we're talking about today, and I'm glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable Leadership Podcast, where we are helping leaders like you grow personally and professionally to lead more effectively and make a bigger difference for their teams, organizations, and yes, the world. If you are listening to this podcast in the future, you could join us live on your favorite social media channel. I don't know, maybe your favorite social channel we're not on, but we're on several. And two of them are places that you can get caught up to and know when we're doing these things. Two of the platforms where these happen are on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can join our Facebook or LinkedIn groups to get all the inside scoop, know the schedule, and join us live. You ought to do that. So you ought to join those groups. Go to remarkablepodcast.com/LinkedIn or remarkablepodcast.com/Facebook to do exactly that. If you like what you're hearing today and want help in developing the leaders in your organization, let's talk. Reach out to info@kevineikenberry.com and we'll schedule time to learn more about your needs and share how we might be able to help. Now that we've done the logistics and hopefully gotten you excited for this conversation, let's bring in my guest. His name is Karl Hebenstreit. Did I get that right?
That's right, Kevin. Thank you.
I slowed down and then I wanted to make sure I got it. Karl holds a PhD in organizational psychology from Alliant International University, a master's of science in human resource management from the Rutgers Graduate School of Management, and a BA in psychology, French, and political science from Rutgers College. But he doesn't live on that side of the country. Now he lives on the other side of the country. He is the author of 3 books, The How and Why, Taking Care of Business with Enneagram, now in its 3rd edition, Nina and the Really, Really Tough Decision, which is available in 5 languages, and the book we're going to talk about today, which is Explicit Expectations, the Essential Guide and Toolkit of Management Fundamentals. That's what we're talking about today. And Karl, welcome. Thanks for being here. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. This is a very timely and relevant conversation.
It certainly is. As I said in the open, clarity is at a premium. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Let's just start there. So I'll even just ask it that way. Why did you say this is such a timely conversation from your perspective?
So just this morning, I was looking at a research study that was conducted that shows that inclusivity used to be what people were looking for most in their leadership. They were looking to be something in an organization, in a setting where they would feel included and counted upon and involved and have their opinions matter. Yet, because of everything that's going on in the world right now, people need a lot more clarity and direction from their leadership. And that's actually risen above being included as being the number one reason to cause engagement, to lead to engagement and satisfaction in the workplace. So I think what we're seeing is the clarity that doesn't exist in the world right now. People are looking to their local leadership in their organizations to help create some sort of direction and consistency so that they have some confidence in their leadership to be able to know that there's going to be something that's going to be solid for them, something that's going to be secure for them, that's going to lead them to feel more comfortable.
The connection between clarity and confidence, I think, is a really important point. And like I said in the open, I think that when we don't have clarity, it causes all other kinds of problems, right? As you just hinted at. And the other thing that you just said, which I think is super important, is that it's perhaps easy as a leader to say, if I'm in the middle of the organization, to say, well, we need more clarity from the senior leadership. Or if I'm a senior leader, to say, well, nothing I can do. Like, would the geopolitical people just fix this? Like, could they do something different? Could we get greater clarity? Whatever. And if we try to let go of that and place blame on someone else, we're missing the point. We need to look in the
Yeah.
mirror, because there's a whole lot we can be doing, even in the
Right.
face of uncertainty, to create clarity about what we can and do know. So you wrote this book called Explicit Expectations,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about some of the stuff in the book, but I really want us I want to talk about this book from the perspective of what's the big idea of the book.
Mm.
Like, why is this so important that you chose to write about it?
Thank you for that question, because I think a lot of people have expectations. We have our expectations, and they're all based on something that's fallacious. And that is, it's all based on the golden rule, because we abide by the golden rule. We've been taught the golden rule is the premium rule, is the one that we need to abide by. It's correct in every single situation. The golden rule is gold is expensive. It's important. It's what we should abide by. And we should treat others the way that we want to be treated. And that presupposes that everyone has the same exact way of thinking, values, ideologies, preferences, everything. So we have our expectations, and we believe that other people know what those expectations are, because we're treating them with the golden rule. They're going to have the same expectations we are. And the reality is everyone's different.
No chance. Like, there's no chance that that's true.
Exactly.
Right?
And none of us is a mind reader, right? No one can know what I can't read your mind, Kevin, to know what you're thinking and what your expectations are, unless you are explicit about them and tell me what they are.
I tell leaders all the time, it is not in your people's job descriptions to read your mind.
Exactly. And they
That's not part
can't.
of their job description.
And even if it were, they can't, right? They would all fail.
Exactly.
So making these implicit expectations that we have of ourselves and of each of our colleagues explicit is what this whole thing is about. Let them know what you expect of them, so you won't be disappointed. And guess what? They also have expectations of you. So you may think you know what they expect of you. You may think that you know what your leader expects of you. And you may have expectations about your leader that may or may not be coming to fruition. And those same expectations are not being played out by what your direct reports want from you as well. So it's a two-way street. It's making your expectations explicit to your colleagues and your leaders, and making sure that your colleagues and team members, direct reports, stakeholders, everyone, that their expectations of you are explicit as well. So you know how you're going to make them happy and how you're going to work best together.
I think that's really, you just made a really important point, Karl, and that is that usually when the conversation comes up about setting clear or explicit expectations, it's about what does the leader need to do to set them and make them clear with their team members, which we're not very good at. We'll get at that in a second. But you're saying something bigger than that, which is completely true, which is that they go both directions.
They do.
And so they go horizontally. They also go vertically, right?
They
and
go
so
everywhere.
pretty much anyone who's listening, even if you're a CEO, you have a boss. It's called your board.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
and your customers.
And your customers. And so, yeah. So whether you want to think up and down, or you want to think across stakeholders, customers, other departments, all of this matters. And if clarity is missing in any of them, it's a pretty big fissure, right? In terms of a pretty big crack, if you will. So what are some of from your perspective, what are some of the problems that come from them not being clear or explicit?
Performance. The simplest issue is performance. We set goals for our team members, for our organizations and our team members. And a lot of times we don't go back to change them as the situation changes, as the environment changes. We just expect people to know what they should be changing without having a conversation around it. We may expect people to prioritize something that they don't think is a priority. So they may, it's a goal, great, but this other thing, I'm going to work on this other thing, which may not be as high of a priority for the leader or the organization, but maybe the person thinks it is, or they like doing that more than they like doing the other thing.
Human nature.
Which may be harder. Exactly. So it's really having all those conversations to prevent surprises during performance review time, whether it's just, a regular check-in, or if it's something that happens every 6 months or every year. We want to prevent those surprises, and having explicit expectations and ongoing one-on-one conversations is going to prevent those surprises. And it's going to make people happier because they're going to know what's expected of them. Most people don't go around and say, I'm going to ignore the expectations. I'm going to do something counter to the expectations. I'm going to fail on purpose because I don't want to satisfy my leader or my manager.
Yeah.
They-
I
That's
always
not on
say
purpose,
that
usually.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
I always say that my belief is that 95% of people want to do great work 95% of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is if explicit expectations are required to define what great work is.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that takes us. And that's why I mean, that fundamental truth is really why I was looking forward to us having this conversation. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned the golden rule
Mhm.
a little bit ago, but we stopped short, I think, of what you'd like to say about
Yeah.
what goes beyond the golden
Exactly.
rule. So why don't you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit more?
So we're all familiar with the golden rule, and we've all been taught it. And we now realize that, hold on, people are different. They think differently. They work differently. They have different circadian rhythms. They're productive at different times. They have different likes and dislikes. So what does that mean? What kind of rule will help us figure this out? So we go to the platinum rule instead. And the platinum rule is treat others the way that they want to be treated. Again, find out what their expectations, explicit expectations are, what their likes are, what they're hoping for, what they're aspiring to, what jobs they're aspiring to, if they're even aspiring to advance in an organization. So many times leaders make these assumptions that people want to have the same career trajectory that they've had. And in reality, the other people don't. They're happy where they are. Now's not a good time because of what's going on in their life or in their family. And maybe that'll be true in another 5 years or 10 years, but not right now. But the leader doesn't know that because they haven't asked the questions. They haven't had those explicit conversations around what's going on for you. What do you aspire to? What's the timeline? When will you be ready for that? Is now a good time? None of that happens. So really having that empathy going into the platinum rule of treat others the way that they want to be treated and find out how they want to be treated through those conversations, ongoing regular conversations is the answer. And then if we really want to be even more effective, integrating that knowledge, finding out that, hold on, there's not just one way of thinking about something. Maybe we need to expand our own worldview and go into a rhodium rule where we integrate this new information into our own existing worldview and expand it. And that's ultimately where we want to be. And that's emotional intelligence, because the golden rule is self-awareness. I know what I want, right? Now I'm applying it to other people, which isn't appropriate in most cases. It would work if everyone were exactly the same, but everyone isn't exactly the same. So then we go to empathy, treating others the way they want to be treated, finding out the differences and adapting. And then the third point is that integration is adapting our own behaviors and our own way of thinking and worldview into this new worldview, expanded worldview of being more inclusive. So that's the whole pathway to emotional intelligence building right there.
So I'm going to guess
Mhm.
that the question I'm about to ask, you've been asked in a workshop or
Okay.
something, or a leader that you're coaching or whatever has asked you this question. Okay.
Okay.
So Karl,
I'm intrigued.
you're telling me that I need to ask my people what they
Yeah.
expect of me.
Yes. Yes.
What if what they want, I don't want to deliver? What if what they
They
want
need to know
is
that.
not is like off the table?
They
One of the
need to
reasons
know
I
that.
think leaders don't open that conversation is they're worried about that. So
Yeah, they need
what's
to know
your
that.
advice there?
That's fine, because they then need to have the follow-up conversation and say, that's not possible, or I can't do that right now, or this, we don't have the resources or the business situation or whatever it is, the budget, or we can't do that right now, but it's good for me to know this. It's good for me to know this because I know there's this gap that we might miss. However, I also need to let you know that that's not going to happen for whatever reason, and explain the why, really focusing on the why. Because if the person who has the expectation that you're going to do this for them, or whatever timeline that they want you to do this for them or support them in a certain way, understands that it's not going to happen now, but it could happen in the future, they're not going to be disappointed and say, this person isn't listening to me or this person isn't meeting my needs, because they're going to understand the why. And the why is really critically important, to really know the why of the situation. And they need to know that, that the expectation is not going to be met right now. It could be met in the future, or maybe it's never going to be met. And that person needs to know that now, because you don't want this disgruntled, disengaged person that's going to be there for a long time if this isn't the place for them, if the values aren't aligned, if what they're looking for isn't going to be able to be met in this job or this company or this department, then they need to move to somewhere else where they will be engaged and motivated and satisfied, and get someone else in there that is willing to work within those parameters.
I love that. And I think it's a really important point here too, as the leader who might be reticent to have this conversation or is worried that what they're going to get back is something that they aren't able to, which is mostly what you're saying, or maybe willing to respond to or meet. And the only thing that I would add to what you're saying is that if you're that leader asking that question and you're worried about what response you're going to get, is keep an open mind about it, because don't immediately say, well, that can't be done. But understand, as you said, what's underneath it. Because once we understand the context, it makes all the difference. If we just are looking for, yes, I can, no, I can't, we will likely miss maybe a lot, but certainly at least something that we would want to have in that. Yeah.
That's really a great point, especially if people are worried, if leaders are worried that the person can say, I want a raise, I want a promotion, I want a whatever, right? And getting to the why underneath, why do you want this raise or why do you want this promotion? Maybe we're able to meet that underlying need without the raise or promotion. Maybe we can do something else and give you what you're looking for without having this traditional trajectory.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of times leaders think that's the only thing they do want. And I can't do anything about that today, or I can't do that unilaterally. And I tell leaders all the time, like, if you quit paying people, they're going to quit coming to work. It's not the only reason they come. It's not the only reason they come.
Exactly.
You wrote this book, and we're talking with Karl about his book, Explicit Expectations. And as I read this book, it's pretty clear, at least to me, I could be wrong, but it's pretty clear to me that you're largely writing this for new leaders, and which is great. And so that's where I want to go. So that's the frame of it. And yet man, like almost every leader has gaps here. So let's go to this question. Why is it that while setting mutually clear, explicit expectations is foundational to our success as a leader, why is it that many leaders are woefully ineffective at doing it?
I think there are many reasons for it, multiple reasons for it, I should say. One is we fall into the trap of the golden rule and figure that we've hired the people there, we've selected these people, so therefore they're going to be very like-minded and want to have the same things that we have, same career trajectory, same motivations, same expectations. So I think that's one foundational reason. A second is we get busy. Leaders get busy. They get pulled into different directions. Different priorities get handed to them from above, and now they have to do this and now they have to do that. So all they're doing is fighting fires, right? So they don't make the time to create these really important one-on-one meetings, or hold these really important one-on-one meetings. They may have them in their calendar, but they can be deleted or moved or canceled, or let's postpone it, or let's reschedule it, and then it never gets rescheduled. So when these checkpoints and touch points should have come into play, where these expectations become better aligned, they don't happen. And a lot of times we'll see that even though a one-on-one is scheduled and the one-on-one is intended for the employee's benefit, what does the employee need from the leader? That conversation never happens, because the leader sees it as an opportunity. Oh yeah, good. I saw that we had a one-on-one schedule because I wanted to give you this work to do and that work to do, and not you priority. So all these take precedence over the real important foundational ongoing conversations that should be happening, that would make things so much smoother if they did happen.
the one-on-one meeting is one of, by my count, 16 areas that you talk about to either help us in setting explicit expectations or places where we need to have them. And
Yes.
certainly we've now mentioned the one-on-one a couple of times. And I think you hit on something really important, is that too often the leader thinks this meeting is for them. It's
Yes.
their meeting, when it really is it's everybody's meeting. It's, if I work for you, it's not just your meeting, it's my meeting too. Like, and so as a leader, we have to treat it as a meeting that belongs to both of us, and that will change everything.
Exactly.
What is your, other than please don't cancel them, please don't cancel them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me say it again. Please don't cancel them.
Mhm.
Beyond that, what's
That sends a message. That sends a message.
it
When you
sends a
cancel those
message.
meetings, it sends a very bad message. It's not important.
I had an employee for a very long time, and I think it would be safe to say that we had a good working relationship. I think she would say that we had a good working relationship. We'd worked together for a long time, and while she lives not super far, she really was hardly ever here. It was virtual even before COVID, and at that point, she and I had a standing meeting at a certain time on a Friday, and I fell into an unintended and
Yes.
even unaware habit
Mhm.
of sending her a note, "Hey, I need 5 more minutes, or I'm going to
Mm.
be a little late, or whatever." And one day she said, "Kevin, I need to give you some feedback." I'm like, "Yeah." She said, "You didn't used to, but now semi-regularly you say, 'Hey, can we push back 10 minutes? Can we do this? Can we do that?'" And I wasn't canceling. I was just
Mm.
delaying. And she
Mhm.
says, "I don't believe it's true, but I can promise you it makes me feel like I'm not a priority."
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I don't think I was ever late for a meeting with her again,
Right.
because your point about cancel it, late for it,
Mhm.
reschedule it. Now, that doesn't mean that that can't ever happen. But the point is, man, it sends messages that we don't even know.
Yes. Yeah. Or
She,
intend.
she gave me
Or
such a
intend.
gift that day when
Yeah.
she gave me that feedback. Um,
And good for her and you for having that relationship, that strong relationship where she felt comfortable giving you that feedback.
Well, yeah, and at the moment, of course, I felt awful, like, because that wasn't my
Mhm.
intent. I mean, she
Right.
she did assume positive intent,
Right.
and
And the effect was
and
still
and
the
I can
same.
tell you,
Yeah.
there's a the reason I mentioned the remote component, there's a remote component to this, because while it still wouldn't be a good thing to do if she was down the hall and she
Mhm.
knew what else was going on, it would make more sense to her that I needed 5 more minutes. But when
Right.
she can't see me,
Right.
she can't
We
see
make
that
up
the door is
stories.
closed,
We
like
make up
that we
stories.
make up
Yeah.
stories, even if trust is high and all the other stuff,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
So what's one other piece of advice you would give about, once we're having the meeting, and once we're having the meeting on
Yeah.
time, we're not canceling it, like, once one piece of advice you would give to leaders
Mhm.
about making those one-on-ones more effective?
Reminding themselves that the meeting is a two-way street and more so directed by the employee and the employee's needs to be successful. So really focusing on the employee's agenda, the team member's agenda rather than their own agenda. When all that is complete, at the end of the meeting, when all the challenges and issues and needs and questions are addressed that the employee has, at that point, if the leader has something that they wanted to have of their own agenda to relay, that's the time to ask permission to do it and do it then. But not taking over that meeting and making it their own. Do this, do that. Here's a deadline. Here's a new thing, a new priority, a new project, a new task, whatever. Because that's what usually happens, and that's so enticing.
If
Yeah,
we as the leader go first, that's
yeah,
what will happen.
exactly.
So we've got to, you know, my basic approach is talk about non-work, talk about their list, talk about my list. And if we do it that way, we got a much
Exactly.
better chance of success.
Mhm.
So there are 15 other areas in the
Oh,
book
yeah.
that you talk
Mhm,
about. And obviously, we don't have time to talk about all 15. Besides, everyone
mhm.
needs to get their own copy of Explicit
Right.
Expectations. But is there one other one maybe that comes to your mind right now that you think an
Mm.
awful lot of leaders, maybe not just new leaders, a situation where more explicit, more clear expectations would really help a lot. Is there one of these areas where you think a lot of us fail?
It's probably related to the one-on-one, but it's really the goal setting, right? And it's so one-on-ones, of course, are separate, but goal setting once a year doesn't cut it. Goal setting and directional setting once a year is great. And the reality is we have to understand that things are going to change. Things are changing so fast in the business environment and the competitive landscape that we are going to have to pivot and deal with different priorities, not just add more priorities on top of the priorities we already have. Put in, this is now a priority, this is now no longer a priority, right? And again, that needs to be made explicit. So the goal setting of the past, where we set them once a year, or maybe we checked in mid-year and changed them slightly, that needs to happen in a much greater cadence. It needs to happen monthly at least, if not, and if something changes even sooner than monthly, then that needs to happen as soon as that changes. So if it has to be weekly, it has to be every 2 weeks, whatever it is, whenever it happens. So those expectations are clear right from the very beginning when they're known to be, this is the new priority, this is the new expectation. And that goal needs to change in that person's evaluation. They can't be held responsible for goals that were set at a time when they're no longer relevant.
100%.
Yeah.
So now we have people here today from Iceland and also from Uzbekistan. So listen,
Ooh.
we're everywhere today, everybody. And guess
I
what?
love it.
Having explicit expectations are
Universal.
important, and they're universal, 100%.
They're universal.
So is there, before we start to wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask that you were hoping that I would, or is there something else you would like for us to have talked about that we didn't?
You know, the one thing, and I don't call it out specifically as a chapter or a topic area in the book, but it's more at the very beginning when I talk about the 7 C's of explicit expectations.
Yep.
For leaders. And we talked about it a little bit without putting it into a category, but those 7 C's are definitely around, we talked about the clarity part. That's one of the C's, creating that clarity. And I think we talked about confidence, and confidence and clarity are related, as is consistency, being very consistent in our behaviors, in our actions, in our the way that we speak, and just so that people can know what to expect from us, especially when there's so much that we don't know what to expect from the world right now.
Yep.
So I think that consistency is really important. Communication, of course, always linked in with that too. That Venn diagram is like everything is linked. Everything is overlapping. Collaboration, creating a collaborative environment. I think that when people are getting what they need from their leader and they feel that confidence in them and supported by them, that they're going to feel much more able to collaborate and bring themselves and be included in that.
And so even know what collaboration looks like here, what my expectations are about collaboration, and vice versa. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, and compassion and coaching. Those are also really, really important. And knowing that leadership is not just about coaching, right? The situational leadership requires leaders to coach, but it also many other styles need to be taken as well. So figuring out what's going on in the situation and acting accordingly, not just using their preferred style or one style with everyone, because everyone's different. So going back to the golden rule and the platinum rule, find out what people need, where they are in the employee life cycle, and what's going on for them, and meet them where they are.
Setting explicit expectations. So before we finish, Karl, I have a couple other quick things for you. I'm going to shift gears before we finish.
Okay.
I want to know what you do for fun.
Oh, what do I do for fun? So I sing in the Palm Springs Gay Men's Chorus. That's always fun. I love to travel, and now I have married travel with another passion of mine, of course, is talking about explicit expectations and helping people understand the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule and the rhodium rules, and just increasing emotional intelligence, because I do have a personal mission of making the world more emotionally intelligent and empathetic. So I'm doing that on cruise ships now. So I love speaking on cruise ships about these different topics. So these are, it's fun. It's integrating my life with fun and business and what I'm passionate about.
Coming to a cruise near you.
Yeah,
So Carl, what
exactly.
are you reading these days when you're not cruising and writing
Yeah.
and speaking? What are you reading?
So I'm not a big avid book reader. What I do, like I was talking earlier, I keep track of new studies that are coming up. Like what's the research saying? What are the topics that are the hot topics, and how do we apply our current knowledge and even evolve our current knowledge to fit what's needed in the world today? So just like that study that I talked about earlier today, that I found out about, seeing that it wasn't just about inclusivity being important for engagement and retention, it's also that confidence in their leadership and needing that clarity from their leadership. So all
Beautiful.
sorts of studies that come out every single day. I see different studies and see how they relate. If you link in with me on LinkedIn, I post those. Whatever I see that's relevant, I definitely share that and post it that way.
Which leads me, it's almost like you know what I'm going to say next, Carl. Like,
I
how
can't read
can
your mind.
people
I still
connect
can't read
with
your
you?
mind.
How can people connect with you? Where do you want to point people if they want to learn
Yeah,
more about you, connect with you, talk to
yeah.
you, hire you? Like, where do you want to point people?
All right. So LinkedIn is, we just talked about LinkedIn. And of course, you can obviously, the Explicit Expectations book is available on Amazon and also through Ingram Spark. You can get links to those on my website, which is www.performandfunction.com, which is a play on words of form and function, but it's perform and function. We talked about LinkedIn, and that's just my last name, Karl Hebenstreit, and Karl is with a K. I don't know if you're just listening, you're gonna have to probably going to perform and function is gonna be your easiest bet because all the links are there. And yeah, you can always send me an email to Karl with a K at performandfunction.com.
Perfect. And of course, always, if you're looking at where you're watching the podcast, you'll have the spelling of his name, or you can always go to the show
Exactly.
notes where all of the links to all the things we've talked about today will all be there. And again, performandfunction.com. Now, Carl, I want to thank you for being here. But before you and I say goodbye, I want to ask something. I'm done asking questions of you. You can take a deep breath. But I have a question for the group, for all of you who are listening, whenever you're watching or listening. And that is, now what?
Mhm.
What idea did you get today that you're going to act on? Because unless you act on it, it doesn't matter. It's one thing to say, hey, man, I agree. We ought to have more explicit expectations. It's another thing to take action so that yours are. And again, not just with your team, with your boss, with your peers, with the other departments in your organization, with your customers, whomever it is. Any any business relationship where there's tension, conflict, frustration, rework. We could go right on down the list. Those are places where very likely there's at least some mismatch of
Mhm.
expectations. And so my hope is that you take from this conversation today something that you will act on to help you be a more effective leader, more effective communicator, and to create something we all need more of,
Yeah.
which is clarity. So,
And
Carl,
that's
thanks
how
so
we're
much.
going to change the world.
Exactly, 100%. Carl, thanks for being here. Such a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the platform.
Everybody, if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Like wherever this happened to show up for you, don't miss another episode. Hit the
Mhm.
subscribe button. And if you were listening to this and you thought, hey, I know someone that needs to hear this, not like because they are poor at giving expectations necessarily. Don't be that guy. But seriously, if there's someone that you uh, think could really benefit from this show, then by all means, invite them to join us as well. Because whether it's you or them, and once you're subscribed, you'll know that next week there'll be another episode of the
Yeah.
Remarkable Leadership Podcast. We'll see you all then.